Hey everyone, welcome to Epiphan's Video on Campus Symposium. I'm Julian Fernandez from Epiphan. I'm going to be, I guess, your host moderator today. Hopefully, I don't spend too much time talking because we really want this event to be about, the great panel that we have here and all of you folks in the audience. We really thank you for joining us. We see we've got people. I got to give folks a shout out. We got people from across the world. I want to welcome, Antti from Finland. Thanks for staying up late and watching. I know it's after hours over there. We've got, folks not only on the panel, but we've got Mike here from Nashville watching. We've got folks in California. So, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. We will be giving you all the opportunity to participate in today's show, whether you're watching on LinkedIn or Crowdcast. Please, say something nice in the comments, ask your questions in the questions tab. We've got folks on our team. Ron and Matt will be in there gathering your questions so we can bring them to the panel. And then towards the end of the show, when we shift into that Q&A, you'll be able to call in live, join the show, and ask questions. So, a lot of us here, Scott's going to be talking about how they do it at Oregon, but a lot of us here might be sports talk radio fans. We're going to do the same thing. If you've got a question, click the link, call right in. You'll talk to the producer, and then we'll bring you live on the show to ask question of the panel. So, with that said, I'd like to introduce our panel today because, again, we're going to talk about Epiphan, but really it's about them. We've got James Copeland from Middle Tennessee State. We've got Raj Singh joining us from USC. Unfortunately, Joe had a bit of a family emergency, so he wasn't able to make it. So we've I know some people might say we've upgraded to Raj. Raj has been behind the scenes putting together a lot of this tech, so we're glad to have him. We've got BC Hatchett, my neighbor in Nashville, Tennessee, from Vanderbilt University. BC's office is literally a block from my house, which is kind of scary. And then we've got Scott LaBounty from University of Oregon. So, thank you all for joining us. For those of you, these guys all know Epiphan. For those in the audience, I know a lot of you do, but for those of you that don't, what we're about here is really something we like to call broadcast without barriers. Our goal with this technology, and to hear about it from the four guys that are sitting here next to me, is to help you make every space a studio and every video an experience. And you might be looking at us going, well, we're just making videos. What's the experience studio? Like, I'm not a broadcast guy like Scott. I'm not sending streams to the Pac-12 network or, posting sports. But, we've seen over the last now almost 3 years is that every single video is really important. And you can really create a great learning experience across campus with these different types of videos. So we've built gear that lets you capture, record, enhance, and stream video really anywhere. And that's what these guys are going to talk about. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to James, who's going to talk about how they've been able to implement a really, really impressive lecture capture deployment across campus in Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
Yeah, thank you, Julian, for that introduction. So I want to just jump right into it. In 3 months, we were able to go from zero live streams to lecture capture to 420, producing like 3,500 streams a day. And I want to talk a little bit about what drove us to make this change and some of our decisions. At the beginning of the pandemic, like many others, during that spring break, we were told that we could not have students come back to campus for that semester. And from what I understand, the rest of that semester, classes almost ground to a halt. Many faculty were not prepared for this, especially the adjuncts. They didn't have laptops or webcams. They just really weren't set up to be able to teach remote. And so I began getting together design ideas, presentations, quotes, and just figuring out how we could use money that would last for years and benefit the campus, where we could have, set them up better at faculty's offices or at home. I chose to put the money into the classrooms for the long-term benefit of having recording, streaming, and conferencing capabilities, as well as being able to do streaming to like overflow classrooms if we wanted to. And, even during the pandemic, faculty could come to an empty classroom and teach safely. I want to quickly just show on one of our classrooms with the Pearl Mini mounted to a wall. We had to make a lot of difficult decisions very quickly during this time. And one of our fears was when we introduced new technology, we were wondering if the faculty would actually use it or understand how to use it. Additionally, we were afraid about the experience being remote, being different, or just limited comparing to being physically in person. My third fear was just the increased workload introducing new technology would be on my staff. We knew from past experiences that very few faculty would attend training on new technology. So I needed a system that a system and a process that didn't require much, if any, training or anything from the faculty. We needed a way of automating the recordings. We learned about the capabilities Epiphan offers to download class schedules, and this would initiate simultaneous streaming and recording the beginning of each class without any interaction from the faculty. Additionally, the links to the live stream and the recording would automatically show up in the student's LMS for them to be able to view. So providing this automation kind of took out the need for training and human error. In a typical classroom, we would have several sources of information like the professors and the students, their voice, their body and facial movements, like the whiteboard, all of the different devices that typically connect to the AV system, PC, laptop, and document camera. We wanted the remote students to have all of this information as close to as possible to like actually sitting in the classroom. After conversations with Epiphan, we learned that their devices can receive multiple inputs, so we could have all of those pieces of information I talked about in several different formats, and then at the same time output multiple streams simultaneously. So we were able to have, a camera on the professor, camera on the students. That camera on the professor was a zone tracking one, so it could stay on the whiteboard. And then in all of our sources, the source that was showing up on the main screen in the classroom would be the same one being shown for the students at home. My last fear that I was talking about is how much extra work this was going to put on my staff. First of all, to reduce our workload, we had to be consistent. We put the same devices in every classroom, same camera, same recording device. Second, we need to be able to mass deploy setting configurations, like during the installation to make that go fast and smooth. And then same as if we were needing to make a change in the future, instead of sending people out to like 400 and something rooms over and over, we wanted a way to be able to send something out over the network, including firmware updates. Epiphan Cloud, which I'm showing an image of here, we were able to create groups. We did so by building. We're able to get all kinds of information about our devices, push out firmware updates, monitor the devices remotely. And one thing that I love, and this will be my final point, is that we can see in the classroom with the cameras, hear what's going on at the same time that I'm remoted into the equipment, so we can do troubleshooting from our office or even from home. Which has really sped up things for us with our troubleshooting and support for the campus. And if you have any questions now, I think we have some question and answers later. I'll take those now.
Jane, we've got one question I see that Ron's kind of passing in is you've talked a little, about you've got a lot of rooms on campus. You've got Pearls in almost every classroom, and you keep saying me and my staff manage this. I mean, how big of a staff do you have that it takes to do this? And, tying it into all that other tech in the room, how difficult was that, and what else is in there?
Well, I have 2 full-time AV techs, and I would not have been able to do this size deployment without Epiphan Cloud. Now that I'm thinking about it, it was more important than I realized at the time. And it's to be able to make any kind of setting changes, and a lot of times we do all of the configurations and such instead of our integrators. They may install the equipment, but we configure the pearls.
Awesome. I think, yeah, it's clear, it made it simple for you guys to be able to manage such a vast scale. So, thank you for sharing. Everybody else in the audience, if you got questions for James, we're, excited to take him later during the Q&A. And at this point, I'm going to hand this over to Raj to talk a little bit about what they're doing at USC and an application I don't think any of us would have thought existed, 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, with things like, TikTok studios and different self-serve options for students to create content.
No, which I appreciate. Thank you for that, Julian. As far as so I'm Raj Singh. I'm with USC. Joe Way was supposed to be here, but he couldn't be here today, so I'm representing Joe. Wanted to talk a little bit about in terms of what we have been doing, and as well as some of the problems that we encountered and how we solved them. Right. One of the things that, as you know, with USC, as many of you know, we've been a big proponent of AV over IP, recording, live streaming, content that's there. And we did a major upgrade across all our spaces to make them AV over IP and be able to record and stream anywhere. But one of the things we saw was, within USC, we have a very talented, diverse, and creative student body, especially given the fact that, where we're at in downtown LA, it's a sandbox within which creativity happens spontaneously. But one of the things we noticed was, we had all these amazing classroom spaces and everything else. We didn't really have a space that was a sandbox for our students to kind of express their creativity in a manner that was appropriate and in a manner where they could take that and scale out very easily. Things like, gaming, video production, podcasting, and a few other things. So one of the ideas that we had and the genesis that we had was we wanted to take our space in the library, which is the center of the campus. It's open 24/7. That's where our help desk is based at, and convert that into a creative space. And we called it the Digital Creative Lab. And, we can talk a little bit about it, and I can show you as far as what that looks like, with regards to the space itself. One of the key things that we wanted to do with the Digital Creative Lab was the fact that as a space, it was accessible to our students, where they can come in and do things that normally they wouldn't have access to. So, for example, with USC, we have a great cinema school where the cinema students may have access to production studios and production lots, but that's for a very small subset of the population. We have 50,000 students. We needed a space that we could cater to them, things like esports, gaming, USC Games program, who we kind of collaborated with, and the cinema school. The USC Games program has a #1 ranked programming based, program in the U.S., but we didn't have a presence on the esports side. So we're like, well, what can we do to create a space that would leverage our students' capabilities and showcase it and provide a platform for them to be able to showcase their products, their games that they're creating, and go from there. So taking that idea and expanding upon that, where we're like, there's so many different things that can go along with it in terms of 3D printing. We have stuff like podcast room, a video production room. So this is just a quick overview in terms of the space itself. As a high level view, it kind of gives you a lay of the land. This room right here on the right that you see was a space that was a very undesirable space. And we were like, how can we take this and make it the most desirable space at our Levy basement? We have a 24/7 help desk that we run here. So what we did was about 2 years ago, we pretty much took that space and were able to convert it into our esports room. And within that esports room, we have things like direct view LEDs, we have our computing platform over there. One of the interesting things about the space is that most of the gaming platforms or gaming esports programs that you see out there, they're very separate from main campus. Usually those systems are running on the outside network, not on the main production network. With this, the challenge was, how do we create something where not only it's used for teaching and learning during the AM, but during the PM, we can switch it over to gaming and then be able to take that gaming content and be able to distribute that, whether for our league games, whether for a program. So in support of that, we have a full production studio that we have created, and everything that we've done here is broadcast in standard space. So things like SMPTE 2110 running over fiber. This is a Panasonic Keros system with a Yamaha mixing console where we can bring up and queue up everything and send it out. In addition, we have the Epiphan Pearl Mini that's there that then be quick recording if somebody wants to do as well too. Because the objective of the space was we could have students and teams come in, do a live stream, be able to send that out, and be able to walk away with a high quality recording, or have a simple interface where they can take and live stream their event to their Twitch account. Because yes, we wanted to have the capability and scalability of a broadcast based solution, but we also wanted the simplicity and flexibility of a Pearl mini system that can then be user friendly enough and kind of scale out and provide that capability. In terms of the space itself, there's a podcast room. As you can see, we have roadcasters, we have Crestron panel, we have sure mics in there. In those rooms as well, we have Pearl Mini because we have cameras on the left and right that can capture. And again, the same idea where we wanted students to kind of come in, be able to record what they're doing, take the video and audio, or be able to share that out in live stream and be able to go from there. And the fact that having a local confidence monitor was key for us because they can see in real time what exactly is being captured in their space. And that could be scaled out to anything. I mean, we have things like our hologram, a machine by Art Media. And you see Joe Way right there. We did a presentation yesterday and we wanted to be able to record that presentation locally. And we're able to do that very quickly in our space. One of the key ideas, what we want to talk about is that being a university, especially a university like a USC, all our spaces, so we have about 500 spaces across our campus, in addition to the Digital Creative Lab, are not only used for teaching and learning, but in the afternoons and in the weekends, they're used for events. So one of the challenges we have is, okay, if they're being used for events and people are coming in, what can we do to provide something that is a high quality recording for our individuals or teams or groups that are coming in and they're not affiliated with USC, but they still want to walk away with something that they can take away as far as the video, the audio of the events that happen. So in support of that, in our auditoriums, we're looking to deploy a lot of the Pearl 2 minis across that space, about 50 of them, to support that idea, because we could have things like, the police department wanted to do some training, or EMT, or the LA Times is here for the book festival. They're using our auditoriums as spaces. And again, they want something very simple, nice, and easy where they can hit record, take the video and audio, and I'll walk away with that at that point. So I think that's one thing we really appreciate about, when we worked with Epiphan with the different products and how well it's been able to integrate into our workflow. And we're looking to get them deployed across a lot of our spaces, especially the auditoriums, which is about 50 of them.
So Raj, you talked a lot about a lot of different technologies, a lot of different spaces, and I think you just said something I think that's really interesting. A lot of folks I see, are asking, and I know in the past have asked us, like, how hard was it to make these pearls play nicely with everything else you had? I know, USC's done big case studies with Crestron, with a ton of other folks on how you've done this digital transformation across campus. I mean, was it a seamless integration? Like, what did you have to do there to make the Pearl work with all these?
That's a great question, Julian. And that was actually one of the surprising things in terms of how easy it was to integrate, especially not just like integration, not just in terms of the physical integration, right? When you talk about deploying it into a system like with HDMI audio input, but also the software integration on the back end, because we do use Panopto, we do use things like Twitch and live streams. Tying it into that, I mean, the fact that, it's an appliance that where we can connect directly to our Panopto servers, directly to a live stream server. And those different examples we talked about, whether it's auditorium, hologram space, podcast room, esports, gaming for education and learning, collaboration. The fact that we are able to connect it, and not just the Pearl 2 Mini, but we also have the Pearl, which is the rack mount version as well too, for a main production space, and be able to capture that because we're using broadcast level content with high fidelity and high refresh rate. So we initially, we had to kind of plan around it, but we're able to make it happen where anything that you saw that with regards to what's on the direct view LED, what's in the gaming space, what's being switched en route, and be able to record all of them. And it was pretty straightforward. And as you know, our team is also pretty small, and we did a lot of this install in-house too.
So awesome. Raj, thank you so much for sharing. I think
Thank
it's
you.
got a lot of people thinking about some different things here. So that's great to see how, we fit into so many different spaces at USC. Now you're able to solve, you know, so many different challenges, but not only challenges, but create new experiences for students. And, one of the things I'm going to encourage everybody in the audience before we hand this over to BC, please, feel free to ask your questions in chat. The other thing we want to hear about, and I think a lot of these guys can probably address them, is what challenges are you guys having on campus with video? What problems are you trying to solve here today? Whether it's something that, Raj or James has mentioned already, something that BC or Scott might mention, or even if it's something that we're not talking about today. There's a pretty high chance between the five of us sitting here on screen, we've encountered it in different ways, and we'd love to share. So, with that, I think I'm going to hand this over to BC, who's going to talk about something that I know is challenging to a lot of folks throughout the pandemic, and James touched on a little bit. But how do we get people to create their own content, especially for lecture capture?
Cool. Thanks, Julian. I appreciate it. And thanks for the invite today. It's a pleasure to be here for it. So, yeah, like James, COVID presented a lot of different challenges for us on a lot of different fronts. One of those chiefly that kind of sussed out was, we still had to have continuity in teaching. Faculty still had to be able to create engaging lessons, create engaging content, and be able to post that through our LMS for students to be able to easily consume, not only in real time, but also in an asynchronous style format. So we had to look at many different options in order to kind of achieve what our goal was, which was very easy, very straightforward content creation. So we checked out several different options. We did have some limited one-button style studios on our campus previously, but nothing at scale and nothing that was received a lot of updating and support. So we started looking around in solutions and did come across the Pearl Mini, and it was kind of the best option that we had for what I would think of as a broadcast style production style switcher in a box, and it was extremely flexible. It's almost like a Swiss Army knife for us for what we needed to do. So let me bring this up here. So the origins of this project itself were that faculty needed a way to kind of create high quality recordings for asynchronous delivery. We realized that just a webcam on a laptop was not going to cut it, especially for the type of experience that our students were expecting. We wanted to really replicate, their classroom experience and the type of content that they would have received pre-COVID during an extremely challenging time. Also, we had to deploy it with minimal training. We were deploying these one-button studios throughout all of our different schools across campus. So we had a limited number of folks to support it. I know we were all kind of challenged on the support side with the number of hands we have on campus, but we really wanted to be able to push this out so that it required minimal training to the faculty. And also, we had to plan for those social distance requirements. We couldn't have staff in the room with the faculty while they were creating that content. So it truly was a self-service option. We also needed for it to be portable, but also adaptable for full installation. So what I mean by that was, space is a premium on campus. We weren't exactly handed 8 different blank slates to work with. We had to work in our existing schools and basically turn classrooms that were unsuitable for social distancing into a production studio. So here's what they ended up looking like. This is in one of our lecture halls, our lecture buildings called Buttrick Hall. It's a smaller classroom, as you can see, so we aren't going to be able to fit a lot of folks in there. So using the Pearl Mini and kind of the amount of options on it, we were able to design a very user-friendly, very modular system that could adapt to what was needed. As you can see, it's basic as just a very simple 3 light kit, a normal camera, and then just a confidence monitor so that the faculty that were in there can kind of see what they were doing. Kind of the key to the whole thing for us with the Pearl Mini was the fact that it has this very easy to navigate, very easy to use touchscreen. It allowed us to not only brand the device, but also for faculty to be able to see how easy it was to just hit one button to start recording, one button to stop, and then transfer that recording instantaneously to a USB thumb drive. So that way, when they were done, they could take it back to their own computer and edit as needed or upload directly to our learning management system. We also recognized that faculty were going to need a few different ways to be able to create and capture their own content. So we had multiple layouts that they could select from to allow for, if they wanted their content full screen, or if they themselves wanted to be full screen and show their content in more of a picture-in-picture style, they could do that. Real easy to create layouts on this thing, and real easy for the faculty to be able to navigate those layouts. One key thing about the Pearl that we experienced, and one thing that was great for us, was the fact that, similar to what James touched on, is we could create a basic profile for what we wanted these things to do, and then just deploy it on the fly as we needed. So that way we didn't have to sit there for a couple of hours configuring settings or configuring layouts. All it was, we just set the first one and then replicated that across the 7 other studio boxes that we had set up. And the final product in one of our larger spaces, this is what the instructors would see. They had their return feed right there on the monitor underneath the camera. They have a simple HDMI connection for their content feed. And then they also have the Pearl Mini there off to the side, ready for them to start and stop their recording. So those were really kind of the basics that we have on how our one-button studios operate. We still have some that are in use today that the faculty just got used to using it and have continued that content creation journey.
Thanks, BC, for sharing. I think it's really exciting to see what you're able to do with basically just the Pearl Mini and the standard interfaces on it. The one question I think everybody on the call is always thinking about when you put new tech in front of faculty, what was the learning curve like, and the training and the response from them? Because I know that's always, you touched on it a little bit, but that's always everyone's number one concern. It might have been easy at Vanderbilt, but can I do it?
Yeah, so I mean, it's very easy, right? I mean, it's literally with the way that we had these things designed, if a faculty member knew how to push a button, they could operate one of these. Due to social distancing, we didn't have a lot of opportunity for that one-on-one hands-on training. So the pictures that I showed were excerpts from our training documentation. And our faculty were able to take that documentation and basically self-guide themselves through how this thing operates and how to create content. And the feedback that we received from them was that they were easy to use, and the content that was created was of a quality that they were unexpecting. I think we'd all gotten used to just kind of popping open your webcam and hoping for the best, but this really provided a very polished product and a very easy to use interface.
My point of view.
Here, Leah, I think James has some thoughts there too. So
Yeah.
go ahead, James.
So we are able to download our entire class schedule from Banner and upload that. So at the start of class, it kicks off the recording without any user interaction whatsoever, which I was talking about earlier. But if we'd never even told the faculty, it would just work. If they cancel class, we record an empty classroom. Like it goes without even having to think about it.
So that's awesome. Thanks for sharing, James. I think we're going to touch a little bit more on that in the Q&A, because a lot of folks are asking about the Panopto integration and the Crestron bit with Raj. And I know, James, you've got some Extron control systems, but I think it's a lot of similar things. But before we get there, I'm going to keep encouraging everybody in the audience, keep dropping questions, challenges, anything you want to hear about into the chat or the Q&A spot. We'll get to that. But I want to hand this over to Scott to talk about something a little bit different for what we've been hearing about with faculty and professors. As Scott's in the athletic department at the University of Oregon, and as a former college athlete who's always jealous of our basketball and football teams who got these amazing streams, Scott's going to talk about a little bit what he does to make sure that everybody at Oregon's highlighted.
Hey, Julian, thanks for having me, and great to be a part of this great group. And a lot of knowledge in this. It's awesome to see and actually listen to these guys talk as well. From the athletic side of things, we stream a lot of games, kind of give you an overview of what we do. Here's basically the gist of our operation. What we do, we live stream events. We actually produce broadcasts on the Pac-12 network, as well as what we call board shows, which are in-venue product, which are our video screens in every venue, the big jumbotrons, as people like to refer to them as. We do a lot with recruiting and film and playing videos, and then we do some other AV support in and around the athletic department and other special events. We'll take on commencements. We'll do some one-off events for campus when they want to come and do stuff in our arena. Oh, sorry. I apologize. Let me do that real quick. There we go. There we go. So this is kind of what we do as far as our network broadcasts or live streams, our recruiting, our miscellaneous AV support that we do. And we run all of that out of our main control room, which is out of our basketball arena. We serve about 5 venues here, which is our soccer lacrosse field, our newly installed track and field facility, our softball field, our baseball field, and our football field. All come out of the control room, which established, been doing this for quite some time. We got connectivity. Our first, once the arena opened 2011, we got our connectivity back to Autzen back in 2013. Then we started with our Pape Field, which was 2014, along with PK Park at the same time. Once we turned on our new softball stadium, that started being controlled in 2016. And then finally our new Hayward Field was done in 2021. From there, our live events consist mostly of men's basketball, women's basketball, volleyball, baseball, softball, soccer, and lacrosse. Our live streams, again, are similar. They are basically anything that is not on TV, we will live stream it. Whether it's 1 camera, 2 cameras, it will be whatever we can get together and put on a nice, decent broadcast for those at home. And then our board shows for those that are in the stands. We do record those for confidence. We produce about 40 games a year on the Pac-12 network. Those are on the linear station. So we do produce a good amount of those per year. Again, for streaming purposes, we do 60 games a year online. And our average fans are tuning in daily to watch. In fact, we're doing one today. In about 3 hours, we'll be streaming a baseball game that starts at noon Pacific time, our time. And then again, board shows, we do 100 plus ones that aren't necessarily seen outside, but are for our captive audience in the facilities that we do have in and around our facilities. Quickly, I'll show you kind of how our brains behind most of our operation are the Epiphan Pearl. We have the Epiphan Pearl 2. We have 2 of them. One does a good majority of our live streaming for each channel we have dedicated for the Pac-12 network. We do have it set up so we can see the different channels that we do have. We do obviously record everything because we'll get requests from coaches that they want to see their games or want their games recorded. So we'll record all of our live streams, which is nice to have the record feature and the streaming feature all in one unit. And then we do the same thing with our tennis. We actually stream tennis. We have PoE cameras, which are power over Ethernet cameras that go directly into the Epiphan via RTMP. We'll take those and then we'll push them back out. So we're able to kind of preview them and see what their status is on the court. So we each have one camera on each court, and then we'll push it, and then we'll also record it. And we've actually pushed the recording so that way, once the game is over, we hit stop on the record, automatically upload to the coaches on a Plex server. And so that's kind of a little bit of our operation, how we do it, what we do. And kind of, like I said, the brains behind it all is Epiphan, and we look to see what we can do to push the envelope with the systems to do the best we can with what we are able to do.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Scott. I know for a lot of folks on here, this is a new application and something they've probably gotten requests for, but haven't always rolled out on campus. Just especially some of our smaller schools that may not be going to the Pac-12 network, that they might be just like you described, streaming live online. And one of the questions we've got coming in is just where exactly does the Pearl fit in your workflow for these different events? Are you producing the whole event on the Pearl because like BC showed you can do that, or are you feeding in a premix from another production system?
So we will take. We have basically 3 units in our control room. And they're all taking one single embedded feed from our switcher and our router, and we're producing that feed directly into the Pearls, and that's how we're able to stream different channels. We kind of can see it, a Pearl as our master control, as the television folks, they use it. Master control basically is the control feature of everything. So basically sits in our control room, and we run different feeds into it. For what and when we're broadcasting, which station, where it's going. So it's basically the control of our operation.
Cool. Thank you, Scott. I think that it's something that I think is going to prompt a lot of questions, a lot of discussions as we shift gears a little bit into our Q&A. And I just want to start with asking the panel. I think one of the questions that's come in that Ron's feeding me is, what's been your biggest challenges, each of you, with video on campus? And just kind of run the same order. And James, like, what's been the biggest challenge you faced?
I think right now, like, things are very smoothed out, but definitely in the beginning, it was trying to figure out exactly what configuration we wanted to have. Like, there's so many options with the Pearl Mini. It's really customizable, and you can route your audio and video wherever you want, basically. And we, finally ended up, with the camera and the microphone on the same stream, and that's worked out well for us.
Awesome. Raj, right?
Yeah, I think as far as, for us, one of the biggest challenge when it comes to, video and Epiphan Pearl products that we faced was, one thing was optionality, right? The fact that they're so flexible and configurable in so many different ways. We want to keep it simple enough for our users, but complex enough in terms of we can allow for scalability, in terms of somebody's coming in and they want to live stream and connect to the USC Games Facebook account or Twitch account or anything else. How do we do that, right? And that was one of the biggest challenge for us. Like, one of the things we brought up was Panopto integration. So we have that, and that's great. But now, which Panopto account does it go to, right? Our Panopto account, their Panopto account. So working that out. So one of the things we did was we simplified the base workflow significantly with the Pearls, whether it's the mini or the rack mounted version. What you see on the screen is what gets recorded, and that's what you can walk away with. And the Panopto integration that we did was each of those rooms had an affiliated Panopto folder where whatever is being recorded gets put in there. And then if somebody requests it, if their local recording gets corrupted, they can request it from a help desk and they can extract it out and provide it to them. Same thing with streaming, right? When you talk about streaming, one thing that we do is everything runs on the production network. So how do we ensure that from our AV VLAN, where a lot of these devices exist, we're able to send a stream out, and the firewalls and everything else that are associated with that, making sure that that's in place, all for all the different social media feeds. So working with our network team, making sure that these Epifans are registered, the pearls are registered, and the tunneling is in place for it to go out, because most of the AV devices are segregated on AVB LAN per building. So that was one of the major challenges for us, which we were able to address and get it working.
I think the fun to hear from both, Raj, James is, hey, we had challenges, but we overcame them. We found a way to solve them. What about you, BC? What's been your biggest challenge?
I think ours is that that Vanderbilt still is a very traditional place when it comes to education. We're all very the on-campus in-class experience is a feature, not a bug for us. We are a residential education institution, so kind of having the faculty pick up new tools and adopt new tools for teaching, especially from an asynchronous standpoint, was a little bit of a new approach for them. So, just trying to help them overcome some of their challenges and overcome some of their maybe hesitancy to tackle this new type of delivery method was one of them. And we had some great support from our Center for Teaching colleagues as well, because there's not just a technical component with the One Button Studios. There's also that pedagogical component as well of, you're structuring material for delivery outside of class time. So how does that fit with your overall teaching model? So trying to combine trying to combine both the technology and the pedagogy is always one of those challenges we're looking to overcome. And I think we did in this fact, kind of overcome that challenge.
I think that's great to hear, BC, and that's something that all my years now working with higher ed folks, something that I always hear constantly is, we're always working with the faculty. How do we overcome? It's not the tech challenge, it's the people. And I think it's great to hear that, with this solution, you're able to really, empower them with the tech rather than, have to pull through with it. And I think Scott, I guess, kind of wrapping up on challenges. What was the biggest one for you guys at Oregon?
In a couple of the challenges that we faced, with especially when it came to like tennis streaming for us when we first got that up and going, getting the cameras configured into the Epiphan and making sure that they actually worked, because again, you're dealing with an IP camera and you're bringing that source in. So we're used to taking a BNC camera feed in and plugging it into a machine and away we go. But actually getting an RTMP feed in and feeding it directly in and doing all the hoops that it takes to make sure that the Epiphan can actually see it and translate and transcode those cameras and making it able to push out to the web server as well. Just seeing what we were able to do with that. That's obviously one of our bigger challenges. Other challenges that we face is I'll get one-off questions. The other day is we want to stream one room to another room, and obviously these guys have all done that. And for us not doing as much of that, we're able to figure that out and push the envelope with the Epiphan to push it to its limits to see what it can do to make it a useful system to do what we need for our facilities.
Awesome. I think that's, it's always fun to hear, when you start with a challenge and it ends up being, hey, we're pushing boundaries to solve different problems, and people start asking you for, different things. You're like, okay, we're going to keep stretching. So that's hopefully encourage some of the other folks in the audience too to keep thinking, hey, what are my challenges? What questions do I have? And I'm going to encourage everybody that's watching out there on LinkedIn or Crowdcast, come on, ask a question of any of our panelists live. You can go to epiphan.com/live. You hit that link. Don't worry, you won't just appear in the stream. You'll get pulled into our green room. They'll get you set up, talk to one of the producers, and then you can come on the show and ask, Scott, BC, Raj, or James a question and just participate. We really, we want this to be a forum, and this is not going to be our only event, and we really want to keep hosting a forum for all of you in higher ed, and even I know there are some folks in here from secondary schools as well, to be able to share ideas and really drive the state education forward. And I've actually got a really interesting question, because I think Raj, both you and James touched on this, and Raj talked about, hey, what Panopto account does this recording go to? How do I pair it? And I know, James, you're paired with Panopto in every classroom across campus. But we'll start on that side is, how did the integration with the Pearls and Panopto work? How did you get that set up? And then we have two different folks, and I know this will be fun because I know, Raj, both you and BC use use Crestron systems on campus. I know James is running Extron. Got some folks asking about how the Pearls played with Extron, and some folks asking about how the Pearls played with Crestron. So you guys, probably ask James first. Just talk a little bit about those integrations and how that worked for you.
So there's the ability to stream to Panopto, which is what we're doing. And then we have an API that connects Panopto and our LMS, which is D2L. So our students never actually log into Panopto. They're accessing everything from their LMS, like they're used to for getting their course assignments and grades and everything. They just have a video tab, and they can look there. We're also linking that with Zoom. So we've got Zoom in there in the same location, and the kind of our setup is we take the feed out of the Pearl and convert it to USB. So we have our camera and mic back into the PC. So all of that works together very conveniently for the student to be able to access the live stream, Zoom, and the recording from their LMS. Now with our control system, we've got the ability to do things like stop the recording. We have kind of this mandatory thing set by the provost that every classroom's recorded. Like the faculty don't really get a choice, but they can hit stop recording if they are having a private conversation with a student or something that they don't want to be recorded. They could even pause. They can, add 5-10 minutes to the recording if they're going a little over at the end of their class. But beyond that, I haven't been doing a lot more with control, but that's something we're actually starting discussions now with.
Yeah, and I think that's great, James. For us, it's interesting. So we have a few different ways. The way we use the Epiphan Pearls. So we have the LTI integration, and we've tested that out. So that can integrate directly from the Pearls into our LMS. But one way that we like to do it is that, we take it and we put it to our centralized storage location per room, because again, a lot of these spaces that we have are event spaces and things that we want to be able to take content, be able to provide immediately. So ours actually, the integration that we're doing with the Pearl and the Panopto is two ways as well, too, same as you. We're using it for either live stream if somebody wants to do it, because makes it easier. If they don't want to go to Twitch, they can connect the Pearl to the Panopto, and then from there, a live stream out to different areas. Or we can send it to a central repository within Panopto. That way it's secured. Because one of the things we want to do was initially thinking, well, we just put it on a shared drive, but then how do we secure that, right? I mean, where does that go? So that way with Panopto, we're able to keep it in an area that's secured, and then students and staff who have access to it, because that's tied to our two-factor authentication, they can access that. So that's as far as the integration side. We do have a backend integration with our Zoom servers and Panopto. So right now, when we do the recording of anything that's on Zoom, the retention policy for that is about a year. And then after a year, it gets archived into long-term storage into Panopto. Now, with regards to Crestron and Epiphan Pearl integration, what we do is we do a lot of virtual control software with Crestron. So we're running VC4. And the fact that the Panoptos are online and they have drivers like Crestron certified drivers and API integration that's already there, that was very easy to do for us and very useful. I mean, we didn't have any issues in terms of all your standard controls. If you want to do that, start recording, stop recording, integration things like if let's say you do want to send it to a Panopto location, it'll automatically do that. If you want to drop it into a drive somewhere, we have that capability as well. But we decided to keep it as simple as possible. It kind of both ways, right? You can give options to the users, and those options are things that can go wrong. So how can we simplify it as much as we can? So we like the fact that we have the capability with the Crestron control, but we also like it that we can keep it simple both ways too.
Awesome. And I think, keeping it simple is something that, we're all constantly trying to achieve. And I think one of the questions I'm going to toss to BC first, but I think you can all touch on it in different ways, is, why'd you go with a dedicated hardware piece to do, this recording, capture, streaming versus, something you referenced, BC, of, hey, just, turn on your webcam and record it there. Like, what's the value like this and putting in the effort?
I think we just gained a lot more flexibility. Granted, everybody's got a webcam on their laptop these days, but it still just gave that, hey, this is a webcam on a laptop feel, right? We wanted our faculty to be able to provide content and create content that had a much more polished and professional look, and also do, some of those fun things that broadcasters get to do, like the reconfigurable scenes, and also have the ability to, make it portable as well, because we knew that, classrooms were going to be reused at some point. We would need to be able to change these to different spaces. So just kind of being able to tie it all together to one box made a little more sense to us at the time, and still does, than just relying on that, webcam on a laptop.
I can add to that as well, just from our perspective. We were uncertain at the time what we were going to do with our computers. There was a lot of talk about maybe, do we even need the classroom instructor station computer? Since the laptops seem to be much more of a need now, so we thought about maybe going to those. And so, like, there's ways of doing this with Panopto using their software on the computer, but we wanted a surefire way. It didn't matter what device was being used; it was going to be able to work for us. And plus, having that automatic capability of starting and stopping the recordings and streams was very valuable to us. And I've talked a lot about the management of these devices, which was not going to be near as easy if we use software.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point, James. I mean, one thing for us here at USC is that all our spaces are BYOD, so we don't really have compute at any of our space. So having a hardware-based recording capability that's very simplified was key for us when we looked at, the Pearls. Then the other thing that was nice that I think kind of gets overlooked is the user experience in terms of having that confidence monitor, the preview monitor. So as a user, you can see what is being recorded and be able to do that in real time. That was something else that we thought was very useful and simplified for our users, because it didn't seem as threatening or didn't seem as convoluted or, as complex, where something could be on a computer. You got to know what web page to go to and select an option. So I think that's one thing that gets overlooked a lot, is the user experience with using something like a Pearl Mini. I believe is really far superior to what I've seen.
It's always great when we can solve your problems and make your life easier, and that's always our goal with all of our hardware. Like I said, we want to make gear that empowers you to, like you guys have all talked about, every video has to be an experience. It can't just be like BC said, we can't be sitting here on another Zoom call just recording something, because it doesn't drive that engagement we want. And I think I'll start with kind of Scott on this next one. A question we have coming in is, how did your workflow change since you've added the Pearl to it? Like what changed with Epiphan versus without Epiphan? And what made you go with Epiphan in the first place?
The thing, that challenge that we had was we were streaming originally through Adobe Flash originally, which is obviously a product that is no longer. And so we needed something to be able to stream, and this product that we came across, NAB, about 4 or 5 years ago, was a product that we felt could handle our streaming load and be able to take in different feeds. Again, we push out 3 or 4 feeds every week, just to the Pearl itself, and having the ability to just leave it in place and know that, okay, well, this switcher, this control unit is going to be intact for this time, and this is where it's going to go, and this is what streaming channel. This product was easy for us to say, okay, well, this is going to be nice, and the benefit of having an internal storage to record our broadcasts as well, where we weren't really able to do that previously, gave us the luxury to be able to say, okay, now we can record and stream, and the user friendly of it to have a student just say, okay, we're going to want you to hit record and stream. That's all I need you to do. You can see it's coming in. We've got all the back end taken care of. Just hit record and stream, and that easy to do. like I said, the user friendliness of this unit is so awesome that I pretty much take it everywhere, especially even the Nano now. It's kind of the one that I will take around to different places when I need something that I don't have connectivity back to my control room, and we need to do something in an offsite. I take the Nano with me because I can take a single camera feed in with the Nano, plug it in to an Ethernet jack, and away I can go. And so it's definitely something I've used quite a bit.
As someone who's watched some of the stuff you've put out, both single, multi-camera, it's exciting to see that you can produce this stuff, and like I said, it's so easy, and you have to just hit go. And who wants to hop in, Raj or BC? I see Raj nodding along, so I know they've had a lot of changes at USC over the last few years, and hopefully positive.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think, for us, especially when it comes to live streaming, I know Scott, has been doing this for a few years. I mean, for our group, I mean, we have a event team, but for our team, which is learning environments, I mean, this is our kind of first foray into, using something where we're streaming gaming events out or things like that. So having something user friendly that our students can do, I mean, that was key for us because end of the day, I don't want to be here on the weekends or late nights, you know what I'm saying? And especially as you know, with gaming events or esports events, usually those things are late night or late evening events. So having our students to be able to trained up and be comfortable enough to do something and flexible enough where they can send it to wherever they needed to go, Twitch or anywhere else, or even record it locally. I mean, that's the main thing for us, right, Julie? I mean, we want to empower our users to be able to express their creativity no matter what that may be. And that flexibility is what we look for. And I think that's one way, because even things like the hologram, that we have, I mean, being able to live stream that and capture that and be able to showcase that to different folks, whether it's a gaming event that's going on or an esports event or, of course, we're going to move from Pac-12 now, but if we go into like anywhere else with Big Ten and all, if anything's happening, hopefully a championship, then we can showcase that, right? So we like that flexibility a lot.
Getting these devices has been a blessing to me in one kind of funny way for me. Back 3 years ago, anytime somebody had a conference call, I would have to go support them with using Zoom. Like, it was just a difficult thing for people to select their camera and not have it muted, select the correct microphone, but now everybody records, streams, uses conferencing, like it seems like every day on campus. So all of that need to be able to support these events has gone away completely for me. So that's been a major bonus.
Cool. I mean, it's just fun to hear how it's bonus for everybody, positive for everybody, and it's really what we're about. And I think I want to add there's been a few questions I think I want to address selfishly, or more how do things work? Folks asking about Pearl records and streaming, and I mean all of you have used all the functionality. People are asking, can the Pearl record all the ISOs of everything coming in as well as stream? And the fun answer is yes. I think that's what Raj has talked about doing on campus. BC's done it, Scott does it every day with all of his streams, and obviously James with Panopto, that's what we're doing there. And one of the other things is folks are asking about, how is this show happening? How are you telling me to call in? So we're actually using one of our new services called Epiphan Connect that full SRT ISOs out of Teams. So, James, Raj, BC, Scott, and myself, and Dan's here, our producer in the background, making this all happen. We're all just sitting on a Teams call. So we have literally turned a Teams call into our studio for today, and that's it. We're bringing it into Unify, which is our virtualized production tool. It does a lot of what Pearl can do, but sitting in the cloud, and we've been able to put this whole thing together. So it's something for a lot of you folks that could be exciting. I know Scott's been talking a little bit about it for possible future things, but we just want to keep growing that capabilities of what you guys have. You've all mentioned, Zoom, Teams, are all on camera all day. How do we make this video an experience just like you guys have been doing with Pearls on campus? I'm going through our questions now. I want to see if there's anything that we haven't touched on. I guess this is a fun future question. I know, Raj, you talked a little bit about how you're going to deploy more in the future. James, you've got a full campus rollout, but we've all on the AV side, and Scott touched on it with RTMP cameras. We've all been talking about AV over IP. It feels like forever now, and it's slowly becoming more and more of the thing. But have any of you guys thought about implementing a centralized lecture capture over AVIP, like with a Pearl 2 in a server closet rather than in one room?
Yeah, it's something that we looked at and talked about actually. I'm glad you brought that up, Julian, because and I think there's value in that. I mean, one of the things that we're looking at is, I know the NDI capability is there with regards to the Pearl, which is nice, but the problem right now we're seeing a lot is the live streaming and the standards, right, in terms of what's being sent out, whether it's H.264, JPEG 2000, or Pure 3 compression codec. There's so many different types, or NDI, maybe Dante Video. So I do think that it'll happen. I think it'll happen once we have some type of agreement on or some standard that's going to emerge as as the one that everyone's using. I do see value in that, and we've looked at it because that would solve a lot of problems. Because I mean, if you can switch and route everything over IP, then you can send it to your centralized Pearl that could be on a rack somewhere, and it can record from the live stream. And there's value in that, which I believe, yeah.
Awesome. I think the fun thing, we're kind of looking the same way, and we're trying to work with as many as possible. Like we've just added in HX to Pearl 2, or sorry, to Pearl Mini, expanded support on NDI for Pearl 2. So it's something, yeah, we're trying to keep track of that too with you guys, and I think it's great. We got to keep up with your feedback, both from the folks on the panel and in the audience. And I know, James, I know you were nodding, so you BC, if you guys have anything to add there too on AV over IP and.
Yeah, so I primarily focus on the classrooms, but I do certain events like our board of trustees meetings, some special things for the police, like we've got drones that we're flying over games and graduation and such. And I've got that video feed coming back, sent out to different like crisis centers and such. And so like we've been talking about having a central place and that would handle closed captioning with that. And so it's a lot of cool things coming down the road.
And I think I want to ask Scott there. I think because we've got a lot of pro AV guys here on the call and in the audience. Like from the broadcast side, you guys have that central control room. You kind of master everything. How do you set up that network, and how does that work to make it back?
Basically, everything for us is we have a dedicated fiber network that we do a lot of our stuff back to our control room. So that's been the plus of having what we have networking wise, is having the fiber backbone to send a lot of our video signals back to our head end in our control room, and then break it out into the switcher and the router and everything back there. One of the things I did investigate and I'm going to try to do some more of futuring is the SRT is something I'm really looking into. In fact, I used it the other day. We had an instance where one of our coaches had a theater room, and they wanted to produce the stream to the other theater room for an overfill, set up a camera, use the nano in there. But my one guy realized that the audio wasn't turning off in the room, so he wanted to make sure that it could go off and on. Well, then I SRT'd the nano back to my head end in the other Pearl to then allow me to do a switcher remote switch between the two different things. So actually using SRT and not even actually using a fiber stream to send the camera back to the control room, doing it via SRT was definitely something different, something unique, and something I could probably deploy out in the field more in different locations.
Awesome. I think that's part of the fun of why we've added SRT is exactly for situations like that, Scott. Like we're using it today. We've got we've run similar nanos, and I think it's just we want you guys to keep pushing boundaries that way with what you're doing. And, encourage, we've had some folks in the audience, asking about different applications like, healthcare sim labs and, pairing that with an auto tracking camera. Um, that's something that we have folks doing as well. I don't know, Raj, BC, you guys have looked into that on campus as well to try to do maybe not a medical sim lab, but pair an auto tracking camera into a classroom.
So we've got a few spaces that the programs are very reliant on distance education. It's kind of some of our outliers that we have here, but we are moving towards, not necessarily the auto tracking, but the auto framing style cameras as well. I'm still a little hesitant about auto tracking, not quite sure it's where I want it to be yet. But I think the technology has definitely gotten better over the past few years. And I think it's, I think it's just going to continue to improve.
Yeah, no, which I agree, BC. I mean, so for us, I mean, we've looked at so we're looking at the pearls for our auditorium because, as I mentioned, a lot of times our auditoriums are used for events in the evenings and the weekends, about 50 of them. So, and some of the non-traditional spaces we're looking at also is a theater space, you know what I'm saying? So a lot of times the camera angles in those are kind of managed rather than auto tracked. So that makes it a little bit easier. Same thing with our medical campus and our medical groups and team. Sometimes, there could be some requirements with HIPAA. We have groups that we work with within the USC that are DoD funded for research. For them, they may have requirements for content or things that are being recorded to stay local and not go anywhere, but they still want to have retention. So areas like that, we're definitely looking at something like Pearl, I'm saying Pearl a mini or the rack mount version. That way, there's no confidence view. But yeah, I mean, it's an area that we believe the flexibility that the different combinations offer will fit a lot of different needs, and and especially it integrates into our workflow right now, which is whether it be Panopto or whether it being tied into our network or anything else. We definitely do like that.
I've been very pleased with our zone tracking cameras. So we'll create 4 or 5 presets for the camera to move to, and then the software draw out what zones across the front of the room. So when a faculty member walks into that new zone, it stays fixed on them until they move out and then moves to the next zone. And that's been real nice to be able to see the whiteboard if they're standing at that and writing on it. But beyond that, we have a handful of rooms set up with ceiling microphones, and we're using those in coordination with the camera to move for the audience or the students in the room. We just have, basically 4 presets set up, real general, but you've got a kind of good idea where the students are at, and that's worked real well. I've thought about getting a little more granular, getting a little tighter shot on the students. I'm sure that'd be a little tougher to pull off, but it's something we're experimenting with.
I think it's something too, James, like you guys have all touched on. We see it growing across campus and in different classrooms, and everybody seems to do it a little differently. We've got a school in Norway that we're talking to over at ISE that's basically running what you've described, James. They spent a lot of time cropping out different spots in their auditorium with 5 different cameras and using the Crestron system to auto switch the Pearl based on where folks go. And I'll give Elaine from MIT a shout out. She was commenting on the question as well that they've got some Aver cameras that are using auto tracking with their Pearls. So keep encouraging you guys in the chat and then the discussion. Feed us your questions if you want to hop on the show. Check out epiphan.com/live. I know we've been here almost an hour now. Gonna start wrapping up soon, so if anyone wants to come on, it's your kind of your last chance. And I'm gonna give everybody on the panel before we hop out, if you want to add a few words or something that maybe you've seen or we've touched on that you want to add. But I'll hand it over to BC, I think.
No, thanks, Jillian. No, I think just, thinking about the platform as a whole, it is a great piece of hardware, but I think the fact that the development is continuing on it and the capabilities continue to expand, I think kind of what makes it one of the more valuable tools in our toolkit. It is at the heart kind of software based, so we're not really tied to, you know, specific specific constraints there. So I'm really interested to see how this, piece of hardware is kind of expanded on going forward, and where other scenarios outside of the one button studio where we can start to plug it in on campus.
I
I think
wanted
that's
to,
go ahead, James. Sorry. Yeah.
I wanted to speak to Epiphan's support. I know that when I've called or emailed, the people that I'm talking to really know this device and are able to know exactly what I'm talking about. They know exactly how to fix it, or if I'm looking to do something new, they're able to put in a feature request for me. So I've been very impressed with that, and have every bit of confidence that they can handle whatever situation we're facing.
Which I agree. I mean, same thing for us. We believe that, the support that we've gotten in terms of different applications that we've looked at, and we've looked at a lot of different applications just on this call today, has been key for us. And how it integrates into our workflow and the fact that it's secure is key for us, at least, based on what we've seen. And we're excited about the growth. And even with Julian, what you talked about, even the platform we're using right now for this webinar, I'm saying with the Unify and everything else that's coming out, the software capabilities, the growth on that has been tremendous, and we look forward to be part of that.
Yeah, I'll add that the systems haven't been using them for quite some time. Have continued to evolve and continue to see and push some more limits for us to see what we can do and continue to do. Again, I pretty much tell everyone about the products that I use, and I can't talk enough about it because of what it is and what it can do. And what it's bailed me out of at times when I'm like, shoot, what can I do? How can I make this work? How do I make that work? Well, let me try it with Epiphan, and sure enough, the product works for a good majority of the things I need to do when it push comes to shove on it.
I'm like smiling here. I know all the other guys. I see Dan smiling. I see, our whole crew. Thank you all for being here. And I will say, we didn't pay anybody to be here. It's not paid promotion. This is again, we're giving Scott, BC, Raj, James, platform to talk about things they do, and we're going to keep organizing more of these. So, thank you all for being here today. Thanks everybody in the audience. All the questions have been great, and if you've got thoughts on something you want to do on campus that relates to what any of us have talked about today, reach out. Happy to, connect you with James or Raj or BC or Scott on, what they're doing, so you guys can talk on the side as well as, like James and Raj mentioned, we've got a lot of folks here at Epiphan that have been in your shoes in different ways or helped folks in your shoes. So, please reach out. We want to help you solve your challenges on campus. With capturing, recording, streaming, and enhancing those video signals. And one last thing to add, we will be at NAB next week. So if you're there, I know Raj is going to be around. We'll be in Vegas next week. We'll actually be doing a live stream from the show with some exciting announcements on Tuesday morning at 9:30 Pacific time, 12:30 East Coast time. And for BC, myself and James that are Central will be on at 11:30. And hopefully see some of you guys there, see some of you at NAB, and we'll see most of you in our next show. And again, reach out if you need anything. Thanks for joining, everybody.